What's up? How you doing?
How you doing? Okay, nice to see you.
Good. Nice to see you. Where are you located?
I'm currently in Tottenham, in London.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, one of the jazz cradles. So
Awesome.
great to meet you, man. Hey, thanks
Yeah,
for
you too.
taking a minute out. And before we get into the new work,
Hmm.
Memory in Motion, I want to ask you, the last, right now, 4 years ago, the pandemic began, really through, the world of music into a tailspin, everybody. How did you
Hmm.
get through that time period and how did it influence this release?
Well, I think that that time period, I actually wrote my last album, King Phoenix. Um, it kind of I was in Bristol at the time, and then in the UK, and then there was nothing really happening, and there was no point in being in the city. And then I had an opportunity to move on to a huge, great big sheep farm in Wales.
Yeah.
So I went up there and bought a quad bike straight away, and I was just sort of going around fixing fences and just chilling really on this beautiful farm. And then that's when I wrote my last album, King Phoenix, and I got that together in that time, and then recorded that, and that came out in 2022, I think. Um, so that, yeah, and I think, and that was, there were tracks on there called like From the Ashes and things like that, and it was very much about trying to make something that was would just make anything happen again, because everything had completely shut down, obviously. So I think this new album, Memory in Motion, is was more of a, everything was a bit more settled, and I kind of got it together quite quickly because I just wanted to, keep the momentum going, I guess. So I kind of drew on different influences for that one, and yeah, I think probably like everybody, wanted to put the whole COVID thing well and truly behind me.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, a lot of what you describe this album as, and I get it too, is kind of defending all of these legends of the hard bop realm. But I'm curious, what are you hoping the listener gets from what you've put together on this project?
I guess the main thing is that we want to set, the statement really of the whole album, even the title, is that we're not, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not expecting people to compare us to those old Blue Note greats and stuff. How can you? It's, that stuff is untouchable. And I guess, the journey that we wanted to take the listener on from the start to the finish, even in the artwork as well, on the back of the record and stuff, is sort of us through the decades, and these kind of contemporary red lines kind of moving through us all, and I guess taking an audience on a journey that sort of starts with that sort of early 60s Blue Note soul jazz, and evolves it, and um, takes you somewhere else, maybe a little bit more contemporary, a bit more collaborative. We're kind of working with rappers, um, and there's other sort of orchestral things on our other albums and things like that as well. And I think, yeah, just evolving that sound, and taking you to another place that's still retaining that soul of that early Blue Note music, but yeah, is kind of modernizing it a little bit, and taking you somewhere else with it as well, I
I mean,
guess.
isn't that the idea of, I think, the whole realm of modern jazz? I mean, I know on my show, I try not to get pigeonholed into that whole era of like the 50s and 60s. I
Mhm.
really try to show people where we are today and how we got there and kind of bridging those two worlds together. And it almost seems like, even with the name of the band, the Jazz Defenders, you're defending that history and honor of where all these
Mhm.
cats came from. And
Mhm.
it's a part of what you do. So do you kind of see that that's what maybe that's what you're doing as a band?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think. I mean, there's plenty of bands that, play music in that kind of genre, and they're not making a bigger statement, maybe, as it's quite a bold thing to call ourselves the Jazz Defenders. Who does jazz really need defending? Like, who are we
Yeah.
defending it from? And I guess there's a gimmick to it, and there's a bit of a quirkiness to it, which I always try and um, demonstrate. That we don't take ourselves that seriously when we're not kind of we're not like the jazz defense, the jazz police, but certainly there is, yeah, I think there is a real soul and heart, and sort of danceability as well in that early music from that era, that I guess maybe in some areas of jazz I feel perhaps does need a bit of defense, perhaps does need a bit of speaking up for, because it's, even though the music that came before that was even more heartfelt and even more kind of raw, and um, I think when you move into sort of later sort of John Coltrane and things like that, things started becoming quite intellectual. And although so much of it is fantastic and magical, for me, the music that really speaks to me is that kind of more heartfelt, soulful kind of jazz that you can't help but kind of move to and stuff like that. And I think that when I first started this project, I felt like that era, definitely wasn't underrepresented, because there's so many bands that are inspired by it, but it just spoke to me, and I wanted to sort of put my own spin on it, and give it a voice again, I guess.
So speaking of your voice, before we get to the beginnings of how you got to where you're at today, talk to me about the Defenders. How did you all come together? How did the nuclei of this group become what it is today?
So it was lads that I was hanging out with on the Bristol music scene and playing other gigs with, and I kind of just um, chose the cream of the crop. Really, when I put the project together, it originally was actually a sync brief. It was kind of like, I kept seeing like Lee, the Sidewinder, Lee Morgan, and Hank Mobley tracks and Herbie Hancock tracks on adverts and TV and film and things like that. And I kind of thought, there's not really anything that sounds like that's coming out now. And I was seeing those tracks getting used a lot. And so originally it was a sync brief. It was kind of like, I gave myself the task of like, why don't I write an album of music that is in that kind of ilk. Um, and I sort of chose the right players to do that with, and to write with as well. And that's how it kind of came together. And it was essentially in the beginning a recording brief, recording project. But very quickly it proved that live, audiences were really responding to it, and because it was so full of energy, so full of um, kind of, yeah, virtuosity as well, I guess, with the people that were playing. And yeah, so then it sort of transformed into a great live project as well, and then that's how it kind of started as its own brand and its own thing to release albums and tour with. And yeah, now we're kind of trying to collaborate more and open it up even further. And I never wanted to stay still, I always wanted
Yeah.
to keep moving.
So speaking of your lineage, how did this begin for you? Who were some early influences, and how did this journey into the music begin for you?
So I started, drums is my first instrument really. So I started playing drums when I was about 5 or 6. And then I moved on to piano when I was 8 or 9. I was playing sort of film themes and things like that. And I got into jazz properly when I was sort of 10 or 11, like playing jazz. My grand's always brought me up on jazz. My grand's a incredible, avid jazz fan. She was married to a jazz drummer in the 60s who used to roadie for Louis Armstrong, and played with Kenny Ball and all of those sort of British jazz greats. And Barrett Deems actually was, who was Louis Armstrong's drummer, used to write to me when I was a kid and send me drumsticks and stuff in the post from America. So I already had a taste for jazz from when I was a really young age, and it was always, I guess, a natural progression for me to move into it. I had such an affiliation with it. But my career, I think, so far has been so varied. I've done lots of different genres of music, and I find that it always comes back to jazz. That's always the key for me to any music, and even any kind of scene within a music scene within a city. I always find the jazz scene is generally the scene that if you tap into first can open up the rest of it. And so although I've kind of taken on loads of different genres since then, jazz is like my passion. I always come back to it.
So let me ask you this: why does the Jazz Defenders? Why do you guys work so well? What is it about the communication and the chemistry and the overall vibe? How does it work?
So there's been a couple of like personnel changes over the last couple of albums, and when you're with like different musicians, obviously bring different things to the table, and the sound of the band has changed, and it's always been it's always been great fun. Basically, it's always been really fun playing together and having that kind of camaraderie together on gigs, and especially when you tour and you're playing every night and you're kind of second guessing each other and all of that. It's always fun with different people. I think like right now the lineup, I'd say that like the rhythm section right now is Will Harris on bass, phenomenal bass player, and Ian Matthews on drums, who's also a rock drummer. He also plays in a band called Kasabian, which are quite big here in the UK and well, and everywhere actually. They're a big success, and he's kind of got this real conviction and solidity when he plays, and he's quite explosive, and I think the three of us are together as a rhythm section are quite kind of quite a powerhouse kind of thing that supports the horns and supports like those guys bringing the magic that they do to it as well. So yeah, they're just great players. They're great fun. They're really great people. They're like my best mates, and um, I think when you know each other that well, and you get on so well, and you have a laugh together, and share the same sense of humor and stuff, then that's always going to reflect on the music that you make together as well.
So what is it that you like the best about being a professional musician?
Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things I hate about it. um, yeah, there's a lot of very tumultuous things about being a professional musician that I won't go into. But I guess the things that I love about it the most is that it's liberating. It's you're kind of free to do whatever you want to do, I guess, within the art form. And although in the beginning of those processes, obviously it's really costly and it's really expensive, and when you try and break something and try and get something out there, there's always quite a long period of being having to be really committed to it and really work hard at getting it out. But then yeah, I guess the rewards that you can reap from that are huge, because you're essentially you're getting your own music out there, and I guess people listening to music that you've written and enjoying it, and in the best cases um even sort of requesting things, or we're already having that as a jazz band is quite novelty really, to have people asking for their favorite songs when we go places. So yeah, all of that stuff is rewarding, makes you feel like you're in it for the right reasons, and of course the self kind of gratifying thing of playing the music when you're on the stage and getting lost in it, and it completely kind of opening your flow as a musician, I think is yeah. You maybe have like 2 gigs a year where it's like
Yeah.
totally totally blows your mind, and it makes you remember why you put up with all of the horrible stuff to get to the gold.
I guess that's life though, give and
Yeah,
take, we have to go through all the mundane things that feel the taste of glory sometimes. So
yeah,
it,
totally.
yeah. So at the end of the day, it's really what you're doing and what the band's doing is all about loving this jazz craft, this idiom. So my question to you is, why do you love jazz?
I guess it's one of the most expressive art forms, isn't it? It's like it's so raw, it can be so volatile, it can be so hostile sometimes, when you're improvising, and um it's so unpredictable, I guess. But I think that's the beauty of it. You can end up in a place, especially live when you're playing, you can end up in a place that's unexpected and surprising. And I think just yeah, as an art form, it's so expressive. It's endless really. It's such a it's such a kind of big medium of um, throwing the kitchen sink at it, and also it can infiltrate so many genres as well. I think that's what I also love about it is it can be a part of so many things. And I think my aspirations for the Jazz Defenders is for that to really open up and bring in lots of other genres within jazz as well, and reach new audiences and stuff like that. And I think there's few genres that can do that as well as jazz, because it, you know, it's there's so many kind of facets to it that you can apply to other genres. And yeah, and I think also, you know, probably the reason I love it so much is probably because of my gran.
Yeah,
And her kind of bringing me up on Louis Armstrong records and King Oliver and Benny Goodman, and then later like Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans, and just, yeah, like amazing jazz that she used to, it was just always on, you know, it was just always on in the background when I was a kid. So it kind of feels like it's, yeah, it's part of my soul without
for
getting too
sure.
deep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's woven into your biology. So, what are you guys doing for live shows for Memory in Motion and beyond? What's going on? The warm months are upon us. How's that going?
Yeah, so we've, I mean, we've just kind of come off a big run in April, where we were doing stuff up north of the UK, up in Scotland as well. We did a big run down in the southwest of the UK, which is where I'm from. Um, and we played at Bristol Jazz Festival. We just did our London album launch at Pizza Express in Soho. Um, and next up, we're off to Paris on Thursday for 2 shows at Duke de Lombard's. Um, we played in Barcelona as well. That was a kind of a last minute thing we got together, which was fun. Um, and really, we have like another, after Paris, we have, I think, another 3 or 4 shows this month, and then we kind of have things spread out over the rest of the year. So yeah, we're kind of about 3/4 of the way through our tour. Um, and yeah, we're playing at Albenga Jazz Festival as well in Italy, which has just been confirmed in the last couple of days, which I'm really excited about. And I'm just really hoping that next year, with some of the press and stuff that we've received on this album, it's hopefully gonna. And also, we have a great record label in the States now that we're working with, called ITI Records. And I think we're number 13 right now in the Jazz Week charts. And yeah, hopefully next week, maybe in the top 10. I don't know, but I'm hoping that all of those things will help. Maybe bring us out to the States next year
Yeah,
to do some shows, because that's what I would really
that'd
love.
be wonderful, man. So, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans.
Hmm.
What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are as an individual and even as a part of the band?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I guess it's quite often quite hard to see myself through the eyes of other people, because I'm always like flitting around doing a million things at once, like a headless chicken.
Yeah,
And I never really have time to stop and think. I should probably sort of meditate more and you know, slow down a bit and listen to my thoughts. Um, and B, I guess my persona is so wrapped up in my music, and my character and my personality is they're kind of always all one and the same thing. So I think that's the thing about, you know, earlier when you're saying a professional musician, being, what's it like to be a pro musician and stuff as well. I think that's a big part of it, is that your identity is so wrapped up in it. You know, it's not easily distinguishable sometimes, and it's kind of like your career is your life. You know, you're answering emails at 1 o'clock in the morning. You're writing. Fragments of melody might come to you at 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of your sleep, and you have to go and write it. And you know, there's all those sorts of things that it's difficult to have your own sort of identity away from music, because it's so embroiled in who you are and what you do. Um, so I guess, you know, if I was to look at myself, I'd, uh, at who I am, I'd say I'm a crazy mad musician.
Yeah.
That's you know, that's just caught up in or obsessed um with music and melody and rhythm.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't have it any other way, George. So the new album, The Jazz Defenders, Memory in Motion, if anybody wants to pick this up in the proper way physically, or they want to see you guys live, anything about the band, where's the best place to go?
So most stuff's on our website, thejazzdefenders.com. That's got all of our tour dates and stuff up there as well. And if you want the vinyl, we've got beautiful vinyl and CDs, then you can head to our Bandcamp page as well, and that ships out worldwide.
Okay, excellent. George, this has been wonderful, man. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Nice one, man.
Hey jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.